you so much, Rob. And I'll call on Chris Vaughan to present the sky this month. And by the way, we did ask for the air conditioner to be turned on or cranked up. Hopefully it will happen.
Starting your feels like it's great here. Press yourself against the wall.
How's that? Can you hear me? There we go. Start with the sparkly one. So yeah, so great to cover another interesting month of astronomy. Hopefully our stuff on my nose from running around here. Hopefully we'll have a lovely month of clear weather where we can get outside and see the sky. We just have to wait for it to get dark. That's the only problem this time. So what I'm going to cover during this next little while is a little bit about what's happening in space exploration, some remembrances of this month in history, and then for observing, we're going to cover what's up with the moon, the sun, comets, asteroids, what are the satellites doing, an occultation dimension, some summer targets, and I'm going to mention all my times in Eastern Daylight Time, which is universal time minus 4 hours. The content of the presentation is assembled into a handout, which I'm going to upload to the RAC website either tonight or tomorrow, so everybody can get all the details in case you miss it as we go. So some headlines in case you're feeling a little drowsy and you want to have a nap. Here's some of the highlights of what I'm going to talk about. Of course, today is the solstice, so good news, the nights start getting longer from this point on. Saturn is also having its solstice. Saturn's seasons are much longer than the Earth's. They're about 7.5 years each. But Saturn's first day of summer is starting around now, and so its rings are open the widest, maximum width. So it's a great time to be looking at Saturn. Great news, summer Milky Way season is here, where all the wonderful objects are visible over our southern horizon. Tomorrow morning, if it's clear, a bit of a challenge, but the moon is going to occult Aldebaran, which should be visible in a telescope. You can find the crescent moon, and I'll give you some details on the timing as we go. This weekend is the new moon, so it's great for a nice dark sky, and I'll mention a few comets that you can go chasing in the dark sky. Tuesday, June 27th, there was an asteroidal occultation that passes over the GTA. Wednesday, the 28th, you can look for the planet Venus to cross very close above the Hyades cluster, forming the base of Taurus, the bull in the pre-dawn eastern sky. And on Friday, the 30th, the moon is going to occult the double star Porama, which should give us a chance to see the star wink out in 2 stages. And finally, on the 4th of July, something new for me, I haven't looked at this before, but it's an effect called the golden handle on the moon, which I'll go into a bit more detail on in a bit. I listed in the handout a number of upcoming rocket launches. A couple of the more upcoming one, or the more imminent ones, are SpaceX launches over the next few days from Cape Kennedy, and there's a number of others listed in the handout. None of them are, they're all basically communication satellites and nothing too glamorous from an astronomy or astrophysical point of view. A bit of an update on some space missions. So we have, this is a summary of sort of what's happening in the sky, in the solar system, for all the various locations, so Mars, Earth, and so on. And I want to highlight particularly these missions. So the OSIRIS-REx mission, which is on its way to rendezvous with asteroid Bennu, has done a loop of the Earth, and it's coming back to do a gravity assist within the next couple of months. It will swing past the Earth and get a boost to send it out to the asteroid. And New Horizons, which was the spacecraft that flew by Pluto, is now halfway to its next destination, which is the Kuiper Belt object 2014 MU69. So that flyby will occur January 1st, 2019. So we're looking forward to that. A little bit about Juno, the Juno spacecraft, which is orbiting Jupiter right now. If you listen to the Planetary Radio podcast, they had one of the principal investigators on that show recently, and I made a few notes as to some of the interesting things that he commented on. So already 44 papers have been derived from just the first two flybys of the planet. They're finding out that the atmosphere is much more variable than they thought. Even just below the belt and zone cloud tops, they're finding so much dynamic variability in the atmosphere despite the fact that the sunlight can't reach to those depths in the clouds. They're measuring the gravity and magnetic field of the planet in detail, and they've been surprised to find out that the core does not appear to be sort of compact and uniform, but it's more fuzzy. It's got some 3D geometry to it, and it's much larger than they thought. Perhaps up to 50% of the volume of the planet would be considered the core, whatever that exactly means. And there's still science being done to work out exactly what that could be all about. The aurora, you may have seen pictures of the aurora around Jupiter's poles. They discovered that up to a large part the aurora being fueled by emissions of particles from within the planet, not just from particles arriving from the sun, which is a big surprise. And this one's cool. The next pass happens on July 1st, is directly over the Great Red Spot. So we should see some fantastic, never-before sights.
First or 11th?
Sorry?
First or
It
11th?
says the 11th.
First, the 11th of July, sorry. The 7th pass on the 11th of July. Yeah, flying directly over the Great Red Spot. So the spacecraft has an imaging system called Juno on it. And all the images are archived in a database which citizen scientists are allowed to access and create processed images and videos. And I just wanted to show an example of an image of a little movie that's been created. The end of mission will happen on September 15th when they'll crash the spacecraft into the planet in order to avoid any possibility of the Cassini spacecraft contaminating any of the moons of Saturn. And some of the interesting things that the spacecraft has been up to recently might surprise you. So the radar system that had been previously used to map the large moon Titan is now being used to probe the rings, both passively and actively. So they'll be beaming radio signals at the rings and getting reflections, but they're also listening for radio emissions from the ring particles. The ultraviolet spectrograph and the visual and infrared mapping spectrometer instruments have actually been observing occultations of the sun's light through the planet's atmosphere and the rings, but also occultations of stars. So they've recently observed an occultation of Betelgeuse, because it's a red star, and they've got an occultation of Alnitak, because it's more of a blue star, and they can compare the way the wavelength of the stars with the different spectral components react by passing through the atmosphere and the planet's rings. They've also been setting up occultations around some of the minor moons. So the moon Tethys is thought to perhaps have an atmosphere, and they've been looking at occultations of that moon in front of distant stars to see if they could pick up any atmosphere around those moons. The radio beacon of the spacecraft has been monitored for Doppler shifts that would be indicative of gravitational accelerations on the spacecraft as it plunges between the rings and the planet in order to measure the weight of the rings. That's the ultimate goal, is to see how much the rings will weigh. And the imaging system has also been taking good long looks at things like Enceladus' icy plumes and things like that. So, as I said, the grand finale happens on September 15th, but until then we're getting plenty of science out of the Cassini spacecraft. Okay. This is just a graphic of the showing the some of the data and the sort of the transparency of the rings radially and also longitudinally around the planet through one of these occultation events. Okay, this month in history, in terms of astro birthdays, on June 26th, we celebrate the birthday of Charles Messier, who we're all very fond of. And of course, he was the one that was tracking comets and created the catalog of his so-called black list of dim fuzzy objects that are not comets and that were annoying to him. So he decided to tabulate them so that he and all of his comet hunting colleagues would not be fooled. Then on July 7th, we celebrate the birthday of Piazzi, who was famous for discovering the asteroid series. July 7th, Robert Heinlein, the American Dean of Science Fiction, was born. And Alvin Clark. Alvin Clark is the son of the original Alvin Clark, July 10th, 1832. And he, using one of their big refractor telescopes, was the first person to observe the white dwarf Sirius B. I like mentioning women astronomers when I find this one is Mary Lee Shane, an American astronomer, and her specialty was analyzing the spectra of the interstellar medium. In terms of historical events in history, on June 30th, it's the anniversary of the Tunguska air blast in Siberia, which happened around 7 a.m. local time. Interestingly, the scientists weren't able to get to the site and investigate for a number of years later, and not photograph it until many years later, 1929. July 1st, 1917, the 100-inch Hooker telescope mirror arrived at Mount Wilson, and at the time, that was the telescope that was bigger than the David Dunlap telescope, 74-inch telescope mirror. When it opened in 1935, the 100-inch was the only other bigger one. July 4th, 1054, the original firework was the Chinese astronomers first observing the supernova that has now become Messier 1, or the Crab Nebula, and that was documented in their writings, and so we know exactly when that supernova first was observed. July 4th, also 1997, was the anniversary of the Sojourner Pathfinder mission landing on Mars. July 6th, 1687, it's Newton publishing his Principia Mathematica, which has his 3 laws of motion. And on July 7th, something crashed in Roswell, Minnesota. Don't know what. Continues to fascinate everybody. July 16th is the anniversary of Comet Shoemaker EV9's fragments plunging into Jupiter and scarring the planet's surface for a while. Here's a picture of the fragments beforehand so the comet did a pass of the planet, got broken up. Those fragments made an additional orbit, and then were captured finally by the planet's gravity and all plunged onto its surface. And July 16th, 1969, the Apollo 11 launch. So, into observing now. The Globe at Night program is a way for people to contribute to science around light pollution. So during the observing periods every year, people are requested to go out under their night sky, wherever they happen to live, and see how deep or how dim the stars that they can observe from their location are. So the focus for the July and June campaigns are the constellation of Hercules, and these are sort of the finer charts they give you to compare what you see. So it would be a very magnitude 0 or magnitude 1 cloudy sky or extremely light polluted sky. And then as you get into more rural sites with less and less light pollution, you'll pick up more and more stars. Can you see Hercules? Hercules is the little keystone right there on the cursor. So here's the website, globeatnight.org. The observing campaign for June is underway right now until the 25th, and then the July campaign will pick up on the 15th to the 24th of July. In terms of what the sun is doing, the summer solstice I mentioned is today, was this morning at 12:24 a.m. And we're also approaching the time of year when the Earth is closest to the sun, which happens on July 3rd at 4 a.m.
Furthest July.
And the handbook, it's the third.
No, you said closest.
Or close,
You said the sun.
farthest.
Yeah.
Farthest. Thank you. Astronomical twilight. So astronomical twilight is the term we use to describe when the sky gets fully dark, when the sun is sufficiently below the horizon for essentially the sky to be indistinguishable from the horizon. And that occurs when the sun is approximately 18 degrees below the horizon. Astronomical twilight today ends this evening at 11:25 and picks up again at 3:13 a.m. So that for imagers, that only is giving you just under 4 hours of imaging time this time of year. And that's about as bad as it gets, seeing as we're on the solstice. Then on July 19th, at the time of our next meeting, the amount of imaging time has grown by about an hour to 4 hours and 41 minutes. And here's just a little graph of the sun. This is the distribution between daylight, the amount of daytime versus the amount of nighttime through the year. Here we are sitting today at the worst possible day. And you can see that, say, even a month from now, we're starting to swing back and the days will be growing shorter and the nights longer at a faster rate. But we have to live with the sort of late sunset for another couple of weeks. For the moon, these are the various events for the moon. The big one, of course, is that this weekend is the new moon for the month. And the next full moon is the full Buck, Thunder, and Hay moon that happens on July 9th. So here's the golden handle effect. Essentially, it's the Montes Jura, which is in the, from our perspective, the upper left quadrant of the moon's disk, and around towards after the last quarter moon, which occurs on July 4th in this event, the sun's light is shallowly hitting the moon, the Montes Jura, around Meridian, and creating this sort of a semicircular handle effect. I've also seen it referred to as the jeweled scimitar effect. In terms of what the planets are up to these days, so Mercury is just about to start a very good evening apparition for us, and that will basically last all the way over the next 3 or 4 weeks until the next meeting. The only interesting thing of note that Mercury will do is it will be climbing past Mars on the 28th, but both planets will still be fairly low into the murk, so very difficult to see those. Venus has been hanging out in eastern predominant sky for quite some time. It's continuing to do that. It's going to be rising at 3 a.m. even over the next month, because even though it's starting to swing sunward, the ecliptic is tilting it higher, so it's sort of maintaining its height. And if you get a chance to see it in a telescope, you'll see that it's showing a partial phase right now, which will be slowly waning a little bit through the month. And as I said, on July 12th, it's going to pass right over the Hyades cluster, so you might make a nice little opportunity for that. Jupiter is sort of past its prime, but it's still a nice target for us in the southwestern evening sky. It's about 9 degrees from Virgo's bright star Spica, but yes, do look at it sooner than later because it's soon going to be gone for the year. The first quarter moon will be sitting about 4 degrees from it on June 30th. And here's a little close-up detail of 2 events. So this is the June 30th, 4 degrees from Jupiter, but also that same time the moon will occult the double star Porrima, and I've got a bit more details on that coming up in a minute. There are about 5 single shadow transits, so the moons of Jupiter, the 4 largest ones, will cross the face of the planet and cast black shadows on the planet if you know when to look. And I've listed 5 observable events in the next 4 weeks in the document that I'll post online. This is the one for June 26th, shown at about 11:30 p.m. with Io's shadow transing across the face of Jupiter. In terms of Saturn, Saturn is sort of sitting just in the Milky Way, or beside the Milky Way. It's in Ophiuchus, and it's unfortunately, as I said, even though the rings are nicely wide open for us, due to the low nighttime ecliptic, Saturn will not get very high in the sky, so it will be dampen our good views of it, but definitely still worth a look. On the 6th of July, you can look for the moon sitting at about 2 degrees above Saturn. Uranus and Neptune are kind of in the post-midnight to pre-dawn sky right now. Uranus is in Pisces, and it's about magnitude 5.9, which is certainly within view of binoculars. But by the time of our next meeting, it'll be rising about the middle of the night, about 12:30. Meanwhile, Neptune, which rises earlier, is about magnitude 7.9. It's sitting just in Aquarius, and after mid-July, it'll become an evening target, rising about 11 o'clock. You might want to try your hand at seeing an asteroid. So the asteroid Juno, here's the path over the next month or so. It's sitting at the north tip of the constellation Scutum, which puts it about 1.5 degrees above the Waldeck cluster now. And then the next couple of days, it's going to swing very, very close to this little star that's at the top of the constellation called Beta Scuti. So that would be a nice little thing to see in the telescope and give you something as sort of guide you to picking up the asteroid. I'd like to report on what the Minor Planet Center is compiling in terms of objects. So already this year, they've picked up another 108 near-Earth objects at a rate of about 140 a month, bringing the total to 15,000. Near-Earth is 108, but altogether, Minor Planets newly discovered, is 15,245 just this year, or about 2,600 a month, and already 29 new comets this year. And that's based on 8.5 million observations since January 1st. Here's a few comets that have been sort of visible in the sky under binoculars or small telescopes. So Comet Johnson is actually sitting, it's sort of passing through the lakes of Virgo right now, and it's in the southeastern evening sky after dusk, and sets about 3:30 a.m. local time. And I've got the finder charts that I'm putting in the presentation in the handout. Comet 41P Tuttle, Jacobini Kresak is observable in the southeastern evening sky. It actually rises and culminates, so it crosses the meridian, or so about 1 a.m. local time. And so you've got a fair bit of time to see it, and it's about magnitude 8, and gradually dimming. It's already past its peak. And it's sort of running through the eastern part of Ophiuchus right now. And finally, Comet Pan-STARRS. That's ER61 Pan-STARRS, again about magnitude 8. It's in the pre-dawn, and it's running for the next month or so, sort of parallel to Aries, just above Venus. Whoops. So there's Venus there, so that sort of gives you your guide of where in the sky to keep an eye out for Pan-STARRS. Pan-STARRS has recently peaked in brightness, and it is dimming fairly rapidly now. In terms of the space station, we're really stuck with only morning passes right now. They start again on the 5th of July, so we have no passes until the 5th of July, and then they start in the morning then, mostly between 2 and 5 a.m. No evening passes at all between now and the next meeting. If you want to get up and look at some of the morning passes, they're crazy hours, but there's some brighter ones there for you to look at. Iridium flares. I encourage you to observe an iridium flare if you haven't already done so, because the Iridium company is already launching the replacement for the Iridium satellites, and they're deorbiting these ones shortly. So get out and take a look. If you want to know when they're happening, you can look at the website heavensabove.com and type in your location. It will tell you when to find them. You can also use smartphone apps for your phone or tablet. I list them in my weekly skylights, so you can also just pop into there, and I've got them all for the week for the GTA. Here's the asteroidal occultations. So just pop up the error bars here. So June 28th, actually June 27th, around 11:12 p.m. The asteroid 83 Beatrix is going to call the star, and this is the predicted center line for the occultation. The blue lines are the plus or minus 1 standard deviation. You can see that we're within the error bars for that occultation. Drops 1.44 magnitudes for 13.2 seconds, but it's only 21 degrees up. This star is located near Antares. It's in Scorpius. But it might be something worth chasing. Here's tomorrow morning's occultation. The weather is looking dicey, but Aldebaran should be bright enough to see in a telescope if you know where to point it. So if you have your telescope out tomorrow morning, be careful not to aim it anywhere near the sun. The sun will be up when this happens. But you can certainly find the moon, and don't use too strong an eyepiece. Give yourself a nice, comfortable field of view, and you should be able to spot Aldebaran to the left of the moon before 9:42 a.m., and then it will egress at 10:54 a.m. So it's a challenge, but it might be possible to try that. In terms of what's up along the meridian this month, of course you want to observe objects when they're highest in the sky because they're be shining through less atmosphere, and so we like to see them when they're on the meridian. And the constellations that are on the meridian at 11 p.m. over the next little while would be Lupus, Western Scorpius, Libra, Ophiuchus, Hercules, Corona Borealis, and so on. Then at 1 a.m. we get into Scorpius, Sagittarius, Scutum, Ophiuchus, Serpens Cauda, which is the tail of the snake, so to speak, Hercules, Lyra, and Draco. And then if you're a night owl and staying up all the way to 3 a.m., then you can start picking up things like the rest of Sagittarius, Capricornus, Aquila, Delphinus, Sagitta, Vulpecula, Cygnus, and Eastern. In terms of what you can chase this weekend, in particular with the nice new moon sky, this is a graphic made in Stellarium of the southern and eastern sky. This is just showing the distribution of the Milky Way, and those are all the Messier objects that you could chase down this weekend that are available in the sky between the south and the east. And if you're interested in some other showpieces that Messier did not include in his list, you could try the Caldwell objects. These are the Caldwell objects. We're only going to get about half of them because they actually range all the way from the North Celestial Pole to the South Celestial Pole, whereas the Messiers are only Northern Hemisphere observable. But there's a number of Caldwell objects. Just to put everything together, there's the whole shooting match through the south and eastern sky. And then don't forget to turn around and look north. There's a whole bunch of other Messier Caldwell objects that you can see sort of around the Big Dipper area. Some of these will be setting and quite low, but you can certainly tool around in around the northern celestial pole and pick up a lot more interesting objects, especially galaxies. So little red ovals here are galaxies, visible because they're out of the plane of the Milky Way galaxy. So we'll see you at one of our star parties. Thank you.